Hey, gorgeous. Welcome to Girl, You're a Goddess. Stepping into your feminine power, owning your worth, and creating a life that feels deliciously aligned. I'm Hilary Burton, a women's empowerment coach, therapist, and professional dominatrix. Think of me as your personal guide and hype woman on this journey to unleashing your deepest confidence, sensuality, and self-love. If you're ready to heal, rise, and start living like the goddess you are, you're in the right place. So pour your tea or pop that bubbly and let's dive in. Welcome our gorgeous guest today. Alexis Neve is a transformational speaker, writer, astrologer, and photographer. After walking away from an abusive marriage and a cultish religious community, she transmuted pain into purpose and reclaimed her voice as medicine. Now, through her podcast, Starry Sky and Witchy Things, which I love, she invites others to do the same. Her work supports women to choose themselves, sit with complexity, honor their desires, and live with depth. Hello, Alexis.
Hello. Hey.
Yes,
Should I say hello, goddess?
Yes, goddess Alexis. Thank you so much for joining. And we have something really special today. So we're going to go into your journey and your transformation because I feel like that is so powerful for our listeners to hear. And then we're doing something we've never done on the podcast and something I've never had done personally. So I don't know, should we tell them or should we save it?
Oh, I don't know.
Tell them so they have an idea.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to do a birth chart reading and I'm so excited for that. So, but yes, in keeping it in suspense. So, Alexis, yes,
for the thesis,
you are into all of the witchy things, the astrology. I absolutely love that. But I want to get into your journey first and how you got started doing this. We want to hear about the cultish religious background and all the interesting things.
Yeah. Well, how do I start? So, the cultish religious background is not so quite as long a background as people might think. So obviously, being of Italian descent, I was raised Catholic. And in the kind of family where my grandmother at some point wanted to call an exorcist on my brother when he was having some mental health challenges. My parents themselves were not quite as traditional. So I were not very much exposed to that side of Catholicism until I was at university. So funnily enough, my first taste of the witchy things was as a teenager, when you go through the rebellious phase and you start exploring things. I was actually initiated in a Wiccan coven, although I no longer go down the same kind of structure path, which makes sense when you come out of religion and reconnect with that side of things from a place of empowerment, like the difference between the left-hand path and the right-hand path, if that makes sense to you guys who are listening. A lot of people see it as evil versus good, but it's more a case of what sides you will do with your own rules and what sides do you actually have a codified rule, code of ethics that you share with other people.
From like very structured to freedom, right?
Yeah. So when I was at university, started hanging out with the youth groups, because that's what you do. You on your own in a big city, trying to meet new people. The university is an easy place to go. And so I started going around, finding a church, getting involved in things. And the reason it became a bit cultish is that when you get the validation and you're someone who hasn't had that kind of validation before, it's very easy to go along with what other people do. And so these kind of groups where they're very strict to an extent, to kind of like, oh, if you're on fire with the faith, you're XYZ. And then you start doing, okay, so I embrace this identity. Now I have to act in integrity with that identity. Therefore, if I do XYZ, because that's the rule. So that's how
it makes sense, right? When you're at that stage of your life, when you're needing validation, you're looking for somewhere to belong in that identity. It's so easy to fall into that.
Yeah. So that's how we got to a point where I entered the marriage just to tick the boxes of not falling into the sin of scandal, which is something that most people would not associate as a thing. But when you're kind of in the more traditional circle, so I guess in the US, you're quite familiar with what traditional Catholicism has done, because your politics for the past 8 years or so has been really heavily influenced by the Christian right. And that sort of started being the time where I started deconstructing, before I even got to a point where I deconstructed Catholicism as a whole. That planted the hypocrisy of being so focused on the moral failings of people, to a point that you're like, if your boyfriend stays over, you're committing a sin, even if you're not having sex. And that's basically the long story long of how I ended up with
and
the
I feel
cultish
like
background.
Even that, there's so much shame and suppression around women's sexuality and the double standard of men versus women in that. And oh my gosh, I mean, so overwhelming. So I can't even imagine growing up that way. Like, I know the suppression that we feel just, in a moderately religious household, but to be in something so strict and structured and just to be absorbed by that entire lifestyle is overwhelming. So you were in that marriage, and then at what point did you leave the marriage? Are you still in the marriage? What does that look like?
I just celebrated a year divorce, and it looks like, according to the canon lawyer at the diocese where I was married, that I actually have a case for annulment. Because of actually, surprisingly, not as strict when you're outside of those circles.
That is interesting.
Circling back, what happened? It's one of those situations where everything happens, and then, since we're going to talk about astrology, looking backwards at the transit that we're going through at the time with that, we're like, okay, it makes total sense that things went the way that they did. But I got to a point where I was pretty much suffering, to a point where I was scared of my own mind. I was part of a religious community for young adults, and you had lay people that were not married, people who were married. It was kind of like open and things. We were meant to go on a silent retreat, and I couldn't go because the idea of being there with my own thoughts was the scariest thing ever. So that was the point in time when I had to reach out for mental health support, and treating it as the level of anxiety around things is too high, with scrupulosity is very close to OCD. So, which is how we got to the witchy things again, because at the same time, my ex lost his job and his mental health went down the drain within a couple of years of me having that situation. So I was by then 2 years in therapy, and that situation happened, and the people around me were starting to be like, that doesn't sound a particularly healthy situation. I was like, this should have come with a trigger warning. Like, when you're I'll say it in a way that's the least triggering that I can. When you're already manipulated into staying in a relationship, it was like, okay, that's probably not the worst that has actually happened. But by that point, it was a case of survival. So it was a choice to swim, and something intervened. That's my soul, something bigger than ourselves, who knows? But I was like, no, I can't take it. I don't deserve it. I had a vision doing a meditation, and it was with someone other than my ex, and it was so devout. I was like, why is this not my life? And sadly, at that point, I still tried to fix it and see maybe if we fix the situation with his job and the money, the stress is going to go and things are going to change. And without spoiling it, since you already know, that's not what happened.
I mean, what a journey through that, though. And I feel like that meditation and that time when he was at his super low and you were really low too, but that coming in at that time was huge, right? I feel like that, even though you attempted to fix it more, I feel like that was kind of planting a seed of what your life could look like. And you were just like, why am I living what I'm living right now? And as women, we are always trying to fix everything. We're always trying to put everyone else first. And so even knowing what your dream life could look like, you were still so selfless in trying to fix that marriage and that relationship, and it wasn't meant for you, right? I mean, being in that and learning all of those things in that journey was meant for you to be the person you are now. But long term, you were meant to be free, and you were meant to tap into astrology and witchy things and help other women. But that journey is so powerful because so many times we think that what we're doing is the right thing because we're doing it for the good of someone else or the good of our relationship or what we believed is the right thing. And like, it is always okay to change. It is okay to change your mind any day. We are constantly evolving. And I feel like people get so stuck in this is what my life looks like and this is who I have to be. But girl, we're evolving every single day. Yeah.
That doesn't surprise me that you would say that we're evolving, especially knowing what I know. I'm sorry, I'm gonna tease everybody until we get to the chat. That's what you do. I don't know what flavor Dom you are exactly, aside from peeking at your Instagram. My mind is definitely that one. So
exciting.
my difference.
Okay, so talk about how your personal journey led into what you're doing now, helping women break free from that, helping women make their own choices, choose their own life path.
Yeah, so that is also quite a journey in and of itself. So the reason I first started with all of the witchy things and astrology was the crash course in all of the things that you're supposed not to do as a Catholic. So tarot deck, started studying astrology, and all of these things that you're like supposed to be scared. Demons are evil. I don't know. Okay, let's go and talk to a demon. So that was to try and acclimatize my nervous system to being outside of the structure of what I've been told.
Yeah.
Right. And then I realized how much better I was with my mental health and how it helped me become more empowered. So within a couple, like 18 months, a couple of years, I then started a podcast. But I was like, sharing that I was still with my ex and I wanted that outlet and a way of using my voice. I was kind of experimenting from the human design side of things, and that was another tool I discovered that is not major to my work, but I still use for understanding the broader way people's energy work. So I'm a manifestor, which is that type where you have the voice as a very big thing because it's not just a defined throat, it's the motorized one. You put things into existence. I was like, let's start a podcast. Why not? Yeah. And so that was more like a hobby at the time. So December 2022, I launched the podcast. And at the time I was being a music photographer and pivoting to personal branding. And yeah, that is one of the decisions then in hindsight were coming from a place of scarcity and kind of like a fear. I was getting to a point where I knew that I had to leave and trying to make it happen. That was a growing niche. I was passionate about women. I wanted to help from a genuine place. And what I loved doing was that boudoir and sing. So I started kind of like being known for working with women rather than just music that can be not quite exactly as well paid as we might like when we so let's put it that way. And so I never really put as much stock in the podcast because that was my focus and kind of like as I said before, you embrace the identity and then you start working in a way that is congruent with your identity. So as a photographer, I was promoting all of the things to do with the job and getting clients that way. But the podcast was still something that lit me up. Something that people were responding really well to a point that despite being a photographer, a lot of people thought of me as an astrologer first. And stubbornly, as you might have said, so a lot of people with a lot of earth placements, I was not ready to completely let go of that identity and realize that there were different ways in which I could have had the women, and that when you read celebrities' birth charts for fun, you might want to reconsider what you do for a job. So fast forward to that, coming 2024, I get someone that I know from my circles, and I was like, would you want to be my coaching client so I can see where I actually have these skills? Because it feels like even in the photography, a lot of what I do is coaching the client through the process of having to be in front of a camera, which is quite scary. Admittedly, I hate being in front of a camera myself. So I realized actually what people keep remarking about me is that they feel very safe in my presence. And so like you start piecing the things together. So I was like, okay, I guess I have to make this a part of what I do. And so that's how we got to the astrology and work and empowerment.
I love that. And I love that you were taking someone or something that, like, I feel like it's your soul's purpose is helping women work through their journeys. And that felt so genuine to you, and it was natural. And like, you were doing it on your podcast for fun because it lit you up, because you enjoyed it, because it brought you fulfillment. And then tying that into what you were already doing as a photographer. And I feel like that's really valuable too, to take away some of those things that you are already creating such a safe space for women behind the camera, and you are making them feel comfortable and helping them through that, and being able to take those skills from a business that you enjoyed, right? But turning it into what is your soul's purpose and kind of aligning your work and your purpose with that. So I feel like that's very powerful. And again, that's where we get stuck in the trap of like, I'm a photographer, this is what I do, versus wait, I kind of want to try this out. And I love that you asked a friend, hey, will you be my coaching client? I want to try this out. I want to, see what my skill set is. I want to be able to create a change. And so I love the willingness to step into that and take what you already knew into something else. So that's huge. Yeah.
Thanks.
I love it. Okay, I'm so excited. I feel like we have to get into the chart now.
Please don't listen too much on me. So if we were to do like a full reading, it would take absolutely forever. But I knew from one of the past episodes that you mentioned that you were a Scorpio. So I assumed that you meant you had the sun in Scorpio. But obviously, I was not surprised to find that you also have your ascendant in Scorpio, and you have Mars in Scorpio. So for someone who also has a business as a professional dominatrix, it's starting to piece together, because that's a very taboo kind of job. And you have 3 placements, because you also have Pluto being same generation as me. And the transformation, when I said that, it doesn't surprise me to hear you talk about that, because you have Pluto in the first house, which is someone who's constantly
that's my life.
transforming.
That is totally my life.
Yeah, and it is conjunct your sun. So that's very prevalent, because the sun is this planet that represents yourself. So you think the big 3, as people call them, the ascendant, the sun, and the moon, are the bulk of your personality, and then all the other planets add a bit of more of a nuance that makes you. So the sun is the majority of your personality to an extent that people see. I don't like when people talk about the ascendant as just like the mask that people see you, like as if it was your brand. Not so much. Still, so in a sense, your potential, that in this life, that is what you're growing into as the sign. So that's that interplay, and you have them in the same sign.
So let me get this right. So my sun is in Scorpio and my ascendant is in Scorpio? What?
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, so double Scorpio, like me, but mine is ascendant and moon. So.
Okay, and then did you say what my moon sign was? Okay. I don't want to rush you.
No, you have your moon in Aquarius. Yeah, no, that's an interesting one, because looking again at the placement that make you good at your jobs, you have the moon in Aquarius. So that is a sign innovation of things, creating a change for the collective, some kind of sometimes a bit of an activist, but also being an air sign. That means that you're very good at detaching from your emotions, and air signs tend to think through them rather than feel them. And that's very good when you're kind of holding space for someone and they're the one grabbing the experience. Can be quite intense and emotional.
I feel like that's interesting though, because Scorpios are so emotional. So I feel like I needed that part of that emotional detachment so I wouldn't get so wrapped up in it, so I could do what I'm doing. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then you have also Scorpio being quite in depth as a sign. You kind of just like, oh, we go with the ocean. That's what's at the bottom. Then I didn't guess it because I didn't know your age. But when I saw your date of birth, I was like, okay, yeah, that's the North Node in Capricorn. But you also have Lilith in Capricorn.
That does not surprise me.
Okay, Lilith is one of the placements that most people don't really look at. It's I like to look at it with Selena. I did not run the chart with Selena, but I've seen two sides of our higher self. I don't even like the word higher self, but that's what most people would call it. In the sense, in how I look at it, because we tend to see the light side of the feminine and then sort of keep the dark side of the feminine in the shadows. But both the light and the darkness have a shadow side, kind of like a higher octave and a lower octave. So I think the Lilith is more of the dark feminine, because that was the story. She was allegedly, according to the tradition of some of the Talmud, I believe, the first wife of Adam, who did not submit. Which is why, and they are in an earth sign. And for me, the earth signs, all of them in different ways, are all on the spectrum of submission and domination. You have Capricorn is very much about authority. Where we have it about service. Taurus is a bit more about pleasure. And you have no placements there, which is quite interesting. But you have Jupiter in Virgo, so that is the Virgo theme of service is a big theme for you, because Jupiter amplifies everything. And I feel like I'm actually giving you a whole chart reading. But yeah, so you have the North Node, which means that your soul trajectory, because I come to astrology from the perspective of evolutionary astrology, which is more about what your soul is meant to learn from the event in your life, rather than specifically predicting what the events are going to be. So that gives you this trajectory where you're moving towards being more structured and disciplined and having authority, rather than the more nurturing side of your South Node, which is in Cancer, which is the skills that you mastered already. So you can rely on them, but you need to learn to move away from them sometimes. And the Lilith being there tends to be it doesn't have this high desire for achievement and recognition, and doesn't want to be bossed around. And then you have two different shadows, which I doubt for you is going to be the repressive one, because it is about shame and self-doubt and making people if someone is perceived to be more powerful than you. And that could be something that you had in the past and of it in your own transformation. And then the expressive shadow, the one to kind of like look more out for, it's more kind of like an inflexibility, because it can get in the way of forging the true deep connections in relationships that are definitely something you want as Scorpio. That's the side of Scorpio about intimacy. But there's another placement that, and there's another placement that doesn't surprise me, given your nature of the two jobs that you do, both of them. You have, being a Scorpio rising, you have your 10th house in Leo. And you have Chiron in Leo. So that is your core wound about self-expression. So it's not surprising that you make a living out of being worshipped, because that is pretty much the sign that wants it. fixing your things. So I saw the chart, like if I was to guess what jobs you do, that would be quite
Were
high
you
up
laughing as you
on
pulled
the
this up? Were you like,
choices.
oh my gosh, this is so spot on? Okay.
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, so you said Leo, yes, and I was thinking about things and I was trying to follow along. So did you say a core wound?
Oh,
Oh,
I'll
sorry.
send you
Yeah, did you
right
say
up.
the core wound of Leo or the core? Okay, so what is
Yeah,
the core wound of Leo?
it's about self-expression. So the Chiron represents the wounds that we're carrying from potentially this lifetime and other lifetimes. So for Leo, it's very much about self-expression, about being seen, taking up space. It's very visible. It's ruled by the sun. So you have sun in Scorpio, which can be quite want to hide, especially in the first house, which is very much very tied to yourself as who you are, being the energy Scorpio. And Leo, he wants to be recognized and seen for themselves. Not is people say that they put on a performance. I don't think that's strictly speaking true. Performance, a lot of Leo, you would see them being in the performing arts, but that is also a way sometimes. And I have a background in acting, so I learned that you hide behind the character, but it's what's coming through is something that's inside you.
That's very interesting because growing up, I feel like I was much more Scorpio. I didn't want to be seen. I would try to hide. Like, I'm 6 foot tall. I'm very tall. And I would make myself smaller. Like, I did not want to stand out. And now doing what I do, I love being seen and I love people seeing me as an example of how they can live their life in freedom also. So that's kind of the way I like to be seen. But I've noticed lately, this is a little spicy. I've noticed lately that like I like to be seen physically though, and just being out, and I like people noticing me. I like people noticing what I'm wearing or my body or my physique. And so that has been a complete evolution from like hiding in the shadows Scorpio to look at me. Yeah.
In a way, that's also to do with the fact that our chart grows. There's a lot of techniques where you can actually see the changes and the shifts, which would be too complicated. But at the same time, also you have already gone through your Saturn return.
Yeah.
That is the big watershed moment where you're starting to realign to what
I feel like I've transformed through a lot of those struggles. Like I've had most of those struggles already. And now I'm at the point where I'm aligned with my energy and all of this is like working together. It doesn't feel like I'm in all these different places now. That's so cool. Okay. So thank you so much. I know I'm still processing. I'm like, I want to write all this down. So my moon is in, oh, sorry. What was that?
Yeah, right up. I'll send you right up.
That would be incredible.
As a gift.
Okay. And I was going to say, that's interesting that my moon's in Aquarius though, because does that tend to be more like of our shadow self, our shadow side things that we work through, or no?
Well, all of the planets have their shadow sides, so you will have that you're working through with all of them. And you're a night chart. I checked that the sun rose later than your birth time. So it is possible that you might sometimes feel more connected to your moon sign than you do your sun sign, depending on the circumstances. And the not wanting to be seen, not wanting to be perceived in the way that the moody teenager kind of way can also be a bit of that Aquarian individualism where you're like seeing yourself as more above everybody and the cool kid, and sometimes it's just because you do want to fit in. It is that axis with Leo, so you want that belonging, and at the same time you're just gonna you don't. So we grow through tensions pretty much. That's astrology.
Oh, that's so interesting. Okay. Yeah, no, girl, I can't wait to like dive into that. I've never had my birth chart read, and I feel like I put it in, I don't know, recently, and I had no idea that I had 2 Scorpio placements. I thought it was, yeah.
Yeah, technically three.
Is that
Well, you have the 2 in the big 3, and then you have 3
it's
planets.
crazy? It makes a lot of sense. And you're Scorpio as well, yes?
Scorpio, rising and moon,
And then
and
what?
Capricorn sun. So Capricorn, the chart, to be fair. I have 5 planets studying.
When's your birthday? It is.
For the jokes about authority and being a dominatrix, that's the textbook with Capricorn. If you go in like the pop astrology websites where you're kind of like your new set thing that you need to try as a sign, and you will have Capricorn, it's always gonna be a BDSM one, and they're always telling you have to try to be the submissive part. Just know that that's not gonna be news to anybody if they tell you to be the dom.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really funny.
So on that note, have you ventured into anything BDSM wise?
Not quite, but it's been part of the journey of my own shadow work, because it comes with a lot of baggage to have that, the visions of what being a dominatrix looks like. So one of my unhinged icebreakers when they do like the fun fact about you is that I got offered a job as a dominatrix at 19. I didn't take it, but that is kind of like that shock the shock factor. But the way it kind of really looks, until you really study it and see what it's like, there's like the humiliation, which turns out I might have a little bit of it, depending on the person. But it was like, that doesn't seem like something that fits me. So I had to go through my own journey with power and how I relate to my own power to get to a point. Okay, yes, if I had the money to prioritize it right now, I probably would take a course to actually do it. But it's not my highest priority.
I love that that's been an ongoing theme for you. And like, how crazy is that? At 19, someone was like, hey, you're gonna be a dominatrix?
Yes, my alignment. But if you think about it, being a coach is very close to the kind of energy you're holding, that presence and space for another person. It's a bit more on the mommy side, maybe, than what most people think. But it's the skills, the energy.
But it is holding that space and that presence and the leadership of it, you know, knowing that I've got this and I've got you in this, and that's literally why men submit. They can feel that, and then that's why clients are drawn to us as well, because they know it's a safe space and we're handling it. So that's so cool. I love that it's been an ongoing theme. You know, you're going to try that, right?
I know, it's not that. You're not making a prediction there. It's just a matter of when, I guess.
Like it's inevitable at this point. And I mean, now you're on a podcast with a dominatrix. Life is just leading you.
Yeah, you're gonna have to be my mentor then.
Happily. We'll jump on a call and I'll teach you all the ins and outs of professional dominatrixism. So something that I wanted to chat with you about, and it's kind of along those lines. It's the dark feminine energy, but it's the feminine rage and being able to release that. And I feel like because we suppress our emotions so much, and we're taught that we need to be good, submissive, quiet women. And so being able to express the rage, the anger, the frustration. Talk to me a little bit about how to do that, how it helps us.
That is one of the things where I actually had an easier journey than most, because I've never been very good at not feeling up the anger. It kind of like explodes. And I've been told, and I refuse to be ashamed of it, but by a few people who have got me to a point where I really exploded, that I can be scary when I'm angry. So I know how painful it can be to have to face anger. But the way I would advise people who have not actually been in touch with that emotion, first of all, to realize that sometimes your sadness is actually anger. Sadness. So that is a first thing, kind of like interrogate the emotions that you're feeling. Then working on reframing the beliefs around anger, as you were saying, people are not allowed to express it. Why? We are just living through what people tell us is true, but is it the truth? So that is the Byron Katie model of questioning everything. Which I would assume is someone listening to your podcast, they're already familiar with that, but just touching the bases in case someone finds it by algorithm magic. And so once you have that, you get to a point where it's no longer seen as the shadow. You start feeling safer to touch. And what I would advise when you get to that point is actually to ritualize your connection to anger, rather than just doing it in moments where something triggers you so much that you're kind of getting the response of closing up, because that's your path, the neural pathway that you have. It's kind of like a way of reconnecting in a way that feels safe. So the more you do that, then when you have the anger in real life, it may be easier for you to be like, okay, wait a second, I need to feel it and let it go, rather than bottle it up until it's too late and I'm exploding and being scary. So there's a lot of different ways you can ritualize it. It's places that go out and you can smash like things. For pay. You can go around and just screaming in the middle of a forest if you have access to that. You can scream in a pillow. I've seen someone having a reel of doing a silent scream where you're just kind of like moving the muscles. That's magic, and it turns out being basically turning into an animal. So it may be scary to actually see yourself in that way. I would say that is like the advanced level. But there's a lot of different ways that you can do it and you trigger it. The breath of fire, I believe that is another way that people use in the yogic tradition do it. So there's plenty of ways you can look at triggering something that makes you angry so that you feel it in the body in a moment where you're safe on your own, creating the ritual around it, so just like the sacredness of it. You can feel it. If someone is connected to spirits, or if you want to do it in a circle, so that you have someone there with you, that's part of ritualizing as well. So I would advise to do it when you're not. You need to learn to manage it when you're safe before you get to a point of actually feeling it when it's coming up in real time.
Yes.
Oh, that makes sense.
That's totally the key. And that's actually the first time I've thought about it that way, as ritualizing it, right? Making it a regular practice that you do to go process through that, because we do bottle it up, and then it's just compounding until we explode. And usually that's in a moment that is not ideal. We're around someone we love, we're in a high stress situation, and then it turns into this very negative experience. But I love the idea of ritualizing that and making it something that you frequently do, so that you're releasing that, and not to feel shame about that, not to feel guilt about that, not to feel like you're still suppressing yourself, right? Just letting it out. So I think that's huge. One of my favorite experiences with that was I took this sensual dance class, and we ended up doing it was like a drum circle. And so we were all stomping in this drum circle. And then she was like, we're going to release our rage. And we all just started screaming. And the sound in that room, it was so, like, at first it's startling, right? but then it's so healing to know that you're releasing so much and all of these other women are releasing so much. And there's so much like community and sisterhood in that. And especially because it's all women and we all have rage that we're suppressing all the time. And so I love that you brought that up as a ritual, though. I think that's very, very impactful. And yes, like you said, helping your nervous system process through that at a time where it's not, super high stress or very important, and it's learning how to do that. So I think that's huge. Yeah.
People are already quite used to journaling for self-care, so they have like their own little rituals. But the problem with journaling, unless you're really good at managing your emotions that way, is that you don't actually feel the emotions. Thinking through and letting things out in a different way. So when the circle, like you said, that you went to, what those things do is creating this space for you to reconnect on a somatic level. All of these things that we tend to live so much in our heads. So even dancing with a playlist that is just that kind of music that makes you feel really agitated without necessarily stomping and waking up your neighbors. But there's so many different ways that it's easy to find one that works for you. It might take a bit of time trying more than one, but it's not like there's no options and you're going to be stuck with your anger.
I mean, forever. I'm not going to lie. The idea of visualizing myself like turning into an animal is very appealing.
That was the guttural noises that was pretty much coming through as lioness level of
yeah
it was powerful. But if you're not expecting, you're kind of like, what the fuck?
You totally have to get out of your head though, and you just have to make it like an embodied somatic experience, like no thinking about it, just whatever feels natural. But I'm actually kind of like really drawn to that. I want to go into the woods and turn into a lion or something.
No, the way I done it, I'm just kind of like, since we were talking about BDSM, it's not surprising. Most people nowadays are thinking like sex magic is just kind of like you get your crystal wand and you're manifesting your thing because of the creative power. But it's actually a very somatic and embodied experience because you are getting into your body. If you're doing it correctly, you are getting into your body rather than being in your mind.
And I feel like then you feel that tenfold, right? Because it's not something that's psychological. It's so connected. Okay. I mean, do you have any tips for our listeners on sex magic, how they should think about it, a process?
I would say that if someone is interested in it, forget what most people say about it and take a bit of the chaos magic approach where nothing is forbidden, nothing is true and everything is permitted. So that is actually the quote. And because it's a practice about reconnecting with yourself and your own power. It's not about who you do it with, which you can easily do it. It's not about having the really long rituals that, if you're ever familiar with what like the writings of the Golden Dawn and all of the things that came down from Aleister Crowley, that feels like that you have to take like 3 weeks for a ritual. Not necessarily, unless that is something that you actually, there's a lot of practices around cleanliness and the food that you're going to be eating before that, the way that they do it in the more ceremonial magic side of things is
I'm gonna have to look that up. That's fascinating.
So it is very much a case of what makes you feel connected to power. In a very body, very much you feeling the energy rising in a space. If you're thinking of it, like when situation where you have like 2 people flirting in the same room, and it's just like the subtle the way they look at each other, but people start to feel a little uncomfortable, like they're not meant to be there. So that is what raising the energy actually looks like. And in that case, it's obvious, being flirting is obvious sexual energy, but in magic in general, It's where the air around the shifts and you palpably feel it. So it is about that. It's not the way that people, as I mentioned, there's nothing wrong with doing it for manifestation and having the connecting with your sacral as your creative power. But that's just a limited way, and you can be there so much focused on the thing that you're trying to manifest, and then keeping yourself in a trying state because you're not embodying the change.
State.
It's something like all magic is about changing yourself. At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Yeah. I feel like so many times we get caught in that trying state, right? Like I even do that because I have my own pleasure practices, but then I'm like, okay, what am I manifesting? What am I thinking about? And it's like, stop. That's not the goal. That's not the purpose here. There is no goal, right? It's just pleasure. That's so I love the idea of the trying state. And say that phrase again that you said, nothing is true and everything is permitted.
Permitted. Yeah. So it is, I forget his name, but it's basically the one principle in chaos magic, which is kind of funny to call it the principle behind it because it literally says that there's no principle and you're making your own rules. But it is basically the one principle of that approach, which is one of the many approaches came out in the 70s, I think, as a way of. They're very good on symbols.
I feel like I kind of live my life by that, but to really think like nothing is true, everything is permitted, that gives you so much freedom. So much freedom from everything that's in your head, from everything that's external in society, any programming. None of it's true. None of it's true. Everything's permitted. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I love that.
Yeah. It is one of my favorite approaches to magic. It's not my main approach to magic in the respect that I wouldn't tell people that I'm a chaos witch, but it's because it is like the ultimate thing. Chaos was the origin of the universe, and you have all of the dark goddesses of the night in Greek mythology was the origin of the universe, and I'm not as familiar with other pantheons. And you have this idea that it's going back, for me specifically, the way I find it appealing as an underpinning approach to all of the other kinds of magic I do. Like, for example, I'm dressed in the way that I'm dressed, wearing the lipstick, wearing the shoes, because that is a form of glamour magic. Was for me. I was listening to specific songs before we got on to get myself into the space and the zone. So I do all of these different, more traditional ways, but the way I look at that sentence, as you said, is very liberating because a lot of the spiritual space is still kind of Christianity repackaged, and there's a lot of morality clauses attached to things. And so there's like, oh, you have to do it this way, and this is what it means. And so there's still kind of keeping, it's supposed to liberate you, but sometimes I feel like you just jump from one religion to another. If you go down the witch talk rabbit hole, and it's people who are Wiccans and not telling you that they are, and then they tell you, don't do a spell because it's gonna come back 3 times and you're gonna get karma from it. Or like, yes, if you believe that, is that really gonna happen?
Oh my gosh. I feel like we could have an episode on your magic practices. Like, I feel like that could just be a whole episode. Now I want to know your magic practices, like during the day. What do you do? What does that look? I am so intrigued. So we'll have to save that for another.
I feel like I now have to do like a sort of YouTube channel where it's just like vlogging my life.
Watch every day. I would be like, what's Alexis doing today? What magic can I get into?
Yeah, so it is funny that you mentioned that, because despite the fact that I'm staring at my altar over there with the offerings and things, I don't always have something that's very openly like spells and rituals in a way that's kind of the biggest ceremonial ways. I feel that for me, a lot of it boils down to how I approach the idea of reality itself.
Oh.
And now leading into the next
So
episode.
how do you approach reality itself?
And it is about being the person who creates it. You have the power. It's easy to think of magic, especially people who work with deities and spirits and other things, and or like even just the objects you use in specific herbs and crystals, and having it's easy to give the power away to that and being like, because this is what they're about, the power is in them. And it's true that using like the deities and calling in the elements and things can be a way of increasing the energy, because it's not just bringing the energy. And I did a ritual a few days back, and like it's quite heavy when it is one, like my main deity being Hades. You can imagine that's quite a heavy energy. But that one, I don't know how that was kind of like, sometimes I'll be like, okay, and if anybody else who's kind of like of the highest good for this situation wants to come through. And then I was just kind of like, why does this room feel like a concert where everybody's just
gosh.
At the bottom of it is just so heavy. So it is true that the power can come from the outside as well, but at the end of the day, it is your power. You're the one who makes the spell. You have to believe that the spell is going to work. And it's the power into the externals.
But I feel like that's such a reflection of us creating our own reality, though. And like, we have the power to do that. And like, if you believe it's working, then you are creating your own reality through that. Yeah. Okay. Well, I was going to ask if you had any final messages for our listeners, but I feel like that is such a powerful message, that you are the creator of your own reality, whether that's in witchcraft or your life or whatever that looks like. So thank you. Yes. Thank you so much for sharing today. Your story is incredible. The transformation you've gone through, your journey. And I am so fascinated by what you're doing with witchcraft also. So keep it up, because I want to know all the things. I'm so curious with my little Scorpio taboo mind. And thank you so much for the beautiful chart reading too. I can't wait to get into all of that. So yay, me too. Can you tell our listeners where they can find you and how they can connect with you?
Yeah, of course. So as we mentioned before, my podcast is called Starry Sky and Witchy Things. It's available for sure on Apple and Spotify. I think it's on some other platforms as well. And I'm on Instagram. This is Alexis Neve, which is probably easier if you have it in the show notes than people writing it down. And yes, my website, if anybody wants to check out pretty photos and the rest of my work, and get a reading like the one you had, because that is one of the things.
I love it. And they can come to you for birth chart readings too, because how freaking cool is that? So I love it. Well, thank you so much. And as always, if you like the show, if you feel like you got value from the show, please share, especially with other women in your lives. We are here to raise a collective and help everyone create their own reality. So thank you. And I will see all of you goddesses next week.